You don't want to start without me?
Nah, you're the one that brings it in. I mean, can't have me doing it.
We could absolutely have you doing it.
Ah.
Doesn't everyone agree Ted could absolutely do it?
Oh, it's not a question of whether I could. It's a question of whether you should.
Oh. Well, in that case, I guess we should bring it in. Nerdarchy Dave here from Nerdarchy, 4 Nerds by Nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And today we are going to be talking about Renown and Dungeons and Dragons.
And Dave being a ghost, because we didn't move a link.
Yeah, I am very ghostly. God damn it, Ted.
So, Renown is a great thing to, add to the game. And, it really is something that, your consequences, or your actions should have consequences. And Renown is a way of having that be good consequences for the actions.
Yeah, I guess, but you could go in the other way too, and have notoriety essentially,
Mm-hmm.
right, instead of renown. And I guess maybe if you're more evil, maybe that's what it kind of is. Here, you keep talking, Ted. I'm going to.
Sure. You could have, infamy points and renown points, or however you want to look at it. It's a great way, and you could, you could use a system and you could have it where, like, okay, well, you earn points based on, what you did and the effect that's going to have. Oh, well, you saved a small town, from a rampaging ogre. Okay, well, that might not have any, clout once you get to the big city. But if you go to that town, they're gonna be like, we know you, your money's no good here, up to a certain point, but you get a room in a tavern, we'll give you a meal. The dwarf, you still have to pay for your ale.
Yeah. So I feel like there's like 2 different ways to look at Renown, right? Depending on how you want to use it in your game. One is look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then you can even look at Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, which expands upon it even more, where they actually have and lay out a mechanical system that gives you points. Then, like, you can kind of look and see how many points you have, and depending where that renown is rated at, it has defined benefits. I know some people really like that, and they want to kind of like codify, gamify everything. That option's there. Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica will give you a ton more of options and possible benefits. And maybe even obligations as well, as far as using renown. Or you could just kind of make rulings as a DM and kind of do it ad hoc and kind of like we do in our game, where it's not a thing per se, but it's part of the game. We don't use it as mechanics in the game.
So in my game, you guys were labeled pretty early on as the heroes of the town. And, like, I use the air quotes on purpose because they got a medal. That was it. There wasn't really anything to do about it. But every once in a while, someone would either make a joke of, well, hey, I'm the hero of a town, or, like, someone would be like, hey, you're that person, coming from an NPC. And depending upon what the conversation is that's going on, there were times that information was able to be had that might not otherwise be obtained because of that notoriety, because of that renown that you had you had gathered by being publicized of, these are the ones who did it. And I like that idea. I like having adventurers being rewarded for heroic actions. As a GM, that's one of the things that I strive for, with my players. Look, you are good guys. I want you to do good guys stuff. And if I reward you for doing that, then all the better. And it can be something that has a snowball effect. It just keeps on going because you did this thing, and you come back to that place over and over again. Those people like you.
Now, the funny thing about Renown in our own personal game is you started the campaign first, and then I started after you. So things had already kind of happened. We were running in the same town. You declared our characters heroes of the town first. So then it became the running joke in my game that your group was the other guys.
We were the other guys. So the joke will end up being, well, we're not the heroes of the town or anything like that. Now, mind you, we've stopped, essentially an invasion force. We have done, possibly even bigger effects globally than what was going on with the characters in the game that I was running. But once it was set in stone, that was it, and it's just been.
There's other guys that have no medals, man.
So like, out of game, it was humorous, and if you were to live the life of those characters, like, there might be some more hostility, there might be some more frustrations as we try and be like, what the heck, man? We did this, and we get nothing? We get nothing?
So some of the ways that Renown has come up and benefited the players and the story arcs in the game, I think that would be like, there's been a question there, so that would be a good place to go and talk about. So a lot of times it has allowed access to NPCs as well as kind of more like plot devices than anything, right? I know, like, in my games with you guys, you had to build a necro bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the characters had the idea that if they could focus Murphy McCrystaltop's entropy ray from his eye, which is basically Murphy is a giant Nothic that was warped by chaos magic, but if they could focus that and harness that energy somehow, they could create a bomb from it. And I was like, sure, that could be a thing. So you created this NPC, Analasalar, who runs the Elven Library.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like an powerful mage, but not really an uber powerful wizard, in the sense that he's not a spellcaster per se. He's just super knowledgeable. He knows how to do rituals, and so he got together some of his elven buddies and some other notables from the town, and they were able to you take Murphy's entropy ray and store it into a crystal, which I think you guys had to quest to get the crystal, and different things like that.
We had to get a crystal, we had to get a lens, and we had to convince Murphy.
Yes.
No,
so
that was hard.
So there were like three adventures that they kind of went on to, but because they were who they were, and they were well known for helping the town, that all these NPCs were able to come together and aid them. A lot of times, if you need research done, you can just go to the library and get it. It's the same in your game as well because of those relationships. Renown in our game oftentimes means just getting access to higher tier NPCs that are important, where you don't have to go through the bureaucracy or the red tape to, like, oh, you help the town time and time again. Here you get the access to the council or the mayor or the head of the city watch.
So you're 100% correct. It could very well just be, tiered NPC interaction. You brought up the library, and in the beginning of the game, when you were looking to gather information, you were always met with this elf, who was always at the front, and he hated dwarves.
The scribe.
He always would try to delay. He would always try to, like, make your stay longer just to try and aggravate you, which was kind of amusing because he didn't want you around either. So being forced to be in the presence with you was a bit of an amusing thing. But as things went on, he kind of realized, like, you're not going away. So it actually wound up. It didn't really make him less of a racist. But he was like, well, I lost this fight, and you're gonna go on and move. But whether you're talking about dealing with the town watch, dealing with city politics, city council, whatever governmental structure is there, you've got the ability to go higher up the chain and be like, dude, you're just a sergeant. I had dinner last night with the captain. I don't need to report to you for this thing. I'm going right above you. So you've got the ability to use Renown and elevate essentially the tier or the level of NPC that you're interacting with. And that can be a really fun way to build those relationships.
So I used it a couple ways in my other game with the Scarlet Sisterhood, where, for instance, like the Deneen character kind of had some renown in the other city where she was from Rylor, with the criminal underworld. So that kind of helped them get access and get contacts there. But then also, like, in one of the early adventures, the players were attacked by bandits, and either Sam's character Agnetha identified herself, or they recognized her, and it shut down the encounter because they're like, oh crap, that's Agatha Armbreaker. I'm not messing with her, and they kind of like threw down their weapons and ran away. So those are definitely some of the ways. And I guess the other thing would be like these characters never worry about mundane equipment because they have enough renown in that town.
Mm-hmm.
We've never worried about staying someplace. It's just assumed they always had a place to stay. And as the characters actually gained kind of more renown within the campaign, like they got to stay at better places. They got their own places. When characters wanted space in my game or your game to do something, they didn't have any problem getting it. It was in some cases the land was even just given to them, so that they could make improvements on the town essentially.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Again, when you decide to make heroic choices, those are things that you've got to be able to be like, all right, well, normally the land might cost you thousands of gold, but like in my case, I'm like, look, I've wanted a chapel, a church of my own, from early on, and once I got Temple of the Gods, I'm like, I can permanently create a structure. I just need the space. So I'm like, hey, if I pay for the educators, I want to open up a school. You guys have a problem with that? And they're like, okay, you have the land, you're going to pay people to work and provide free education to people in town. Yeah, we got no problems with that. And it was just like, all right, I just I cast my spell every day for a year, and castle became permanent, or the temple.
And really, if you look at the DMG and Gilgamesh got the Ravnica, a lot of the benefits really are that it's access to having underlings to help you do stuff, and access to where you can borrow stuff, which I think that's come up oftentimes in our games as well. Whether it's getting to ride a barge down the river, or you need a specific thing to do a specific task. Oftentimes you're going to be able to have access to that and borrow these things from having renown. And I'm fairly certain, like the different scores, that is a lot of the benefits that you get as well. Some of them are also like you get a paycheck essentially, right? you whatever your whatever level you decide your character kind of lives at, that might be incorporated into their renown, depending on the organization, especially from guildmasters. But I actually did something like that very similar early on, like because you all had things that you guys did in town. The Goblos were entertainers. Todd was part of the Watch.
I worked for the Elven Library.
You worked for the Elven Library. So you guys were all given kind of like stipends at some point. But like, this is basically what you make for doing this other stuff when you're not adventuring.
So I just got to pull out a comment here. So Mr. L says, why we never get to see Ted and Dave's lower half? I think, no, he says, I think they're two of Tiamat's heads. So
the really nerdy, scrubby part to it.
If you go back to some of our older videos, you will get to see all of us. Yeah.
All in all of our nerd glory. Charles Cole question: would you in a campaign make the renown regional or global? You can actually do both. Especially if you're gamifying it and using a score, you might have renown per region, per certain sections with different organizations, and global as well. The biggest factor is what is it the players have been doing, on what stage kind of have they been performing in your world. Now, if they belong to a really well-known organization, and that organization has ranks, then in that case I would say, like, if they can identify themselves as being a part of that organization and it's known globally, then they would gain some benefits from that. Not quite as well as if they were personally known about, but they would still get some benefits.
Yeah. So, like, in our world, we have a company of the NAG, and there are different, levels that are there, and that's supposed to be, a wide-reaching organization. If you have an adventuring party and you are using your adventurer's name, the adventuring party name over and over again, and you start doing things over, a large area, within that kingdom, you might know, people might know who you are, but the second that you cross the boundaries, you might be like, well, you come across an NPC who hasn't traveled, hasn't interacted with people from the other kingdom, so they might not have a clue who you are because you're outside your regional effect area. And that's why like the tiers of play are kind of designed to be like, okay, you're going to hit locally, you're going to hit, regionally, you're going to hit globally, and then you technically have got the ability to go planarly. I don't think that last one is a proper word, but it is what it is. Now you start going and offing, major immortal creatures and raising a stink about it. It's quite possible that other beings are going to know who you are, even if they've never been to the prime material plane. If there's a chance that your deeds have that kind of reaction or effect.
And folks, if you have questions, feel free to just drop a question in front of it. It makes it a lot easier for us to pick them out. Like Taurus just did. Taurus, not Taurus.
I'm like Taurus Tavares?
Yeah, he's made an appearance. I'm picking Mastermind for my roguish archetype, but it says in the type's description, one gaming set of your choice. What's a gaming set in the world of D&D? Forgive me for being a noob. Playing cards, dragon chess. Dice, yeah. But it could be more than that depending on if your GM has more games. But essentially it's going to be chess, dice, cards. And it's broken down really simple. Although with it being that basic, it's like you pretty much could play any card game, I guess.
Oh, I'm proficient. I played a card game once. I'm good. So I know I started work on a document a while ago to kind of create some new games and just some new sets of things. Haven't done anything with it yet, but I wanted to see, like, there hasn't been a lot of gaming usage because do you just make a skill roll? Well, all right. Well, I'm playing a rogue. I've got this gaming set, and I decided to take deception and sleight of hand, and I'm proficient in it. Like, why do I not just own this game? Like, why am I rolling a skill check? So like, there's not a whole lot of rules for getting into it. So I wanted to try to expand upon that option.
Yeah, one of my early attempts at the family game, I think I had made up a dice game that was pretty simple like that. It was just like roll 3d6 and high numbers won, doubles did something different. So you can definitely do that, especially since we play D&D with polyhedrals. It's really easy to kind of just like make up some rules for different games.
And when you've got the dice right there anyway, how hard is it to be like, all right, well, let's give that D12 some love, since it's only used for the great axe and the barbarian.
Also, another fun thing to do too, I think, would be to make like stat blocks for tiny monsters that you put on a table and fight each other, and then you can literally just use the combat rolls, but with with that monster stat blocks. But then, like, if it's a game you decide that your players can be proficient in, or if they had skills that you feel like they could use, they could then use those skills to try and cheat and stuff. They could dope their tiny monster.
I think I'm gonna have to work on that one. I like that idea.
Let's see.
So while you're thinking or looking for
I'm looking at
stuff
at a comment here.
I had made a comment that last Friday was supposed to be the RPG crate game, and due to some unforeseen circumstances, the game did not go. So if you were looking to watch that, I do apologize. That is actually going to be March 2nd, and we actually are going to have a player swap, as one of our players, at least for the foreseeable future, is unable to continue. So if you're interested in that game and you want to see who the new player is and how they're all going to get in, tune in on March 2nd as we bring in a new player. We're going to actually have a cool layout to go with it, and I think it'll be a grand old time.
It's getting a facelift, folks. So, Justin, so the group has a banner that's recognized. The DM used a different group using that banner to make the characters look bad, and the party has to find out who and why. What do you think?
It sounds like a blast.
And it kind of fits right into the idea of renown anyway. So, yeah, absolutely, where they have to clear their names. It's a classic trope. They have to figure out who actually did it and then prove that it was them and not them, however that would work.
Yeah.
It's D&D, so it probably just means they're going to murder them. I don't know if it really proves their innocence. We got these bodies and this second banner.
Reminds me of Spaceballs. He did it. So definitely be a lot of fun to run that kind of game. You've been adventuring, you've done all this cool stuff, and then somebody else is deciding to try and rip off your name.
Joseph wants to know: do NPCs ever gain renown with players?
I would absolutely say so. But that's not a DM's choice. I think that's a player's choice. And realistically, if you put an NPC that the party has decided they really like going to, it could be the accent you're using. It could be what they do for the party. It could be a number of things or a combination of things. But if players keep going back to that NPC, they're essentially building relationships. They're building renown with each other. I know, we brought up Adelasalar, a very influential member of Gryffindor, and because the party kept going back to him, because he was able to help out in a number of a variety of ways, a number of times, people kept going back to him. In Critical Role, there's a number of NPCs that the party keeps going to or kept going to in the first campaign because the party fell in love with the NPC, or the players might have. I know I don't know whether he was an alchemist or a blacksmith or what, but there was Victor. And Matt did an awesome voice for this character. I'm not even going to attempt to replicate it, but Victor was hysterical. On one of the Halloween episodes, Matt actually dressed up as Victor and introduced the game in Victor's voice. I was rolling laughing, watching it. But because the character was so amusing to interact with, and because Matt did such a great job with it, players kept wanting to go to him. Same thing within the second game or second campaign. Pumat Sol. The fact that there's 4 of them, was awesome. The fact that he's using a Canadian accent. The players, the actual players at the table thought that he was amusing. They're going back to him time and time again, even though he doesn't have anything else for sale, just to interact with him. And that's a player choice because it's amusing. And anytime you have that, you want to build on it. You want to keep that happening because the players are making a choice. Those characters are like, I want to build a relationship there by making the choice to go back. And those actions should have positive consequences.
So, David Phillips, can characters unknowingly build renown with other factions with their actions as they venture? Do you have an example? I don't have an example from our games, but I will say this is a thing that can absolutely happen. Like, for instance, say the players are on an adventure, they have a guide with them, and the guide goes through the whole adventure with them, and they'll come back and they'll tell the story. But during the course of this adventure, they accidentally release a demon lord, a great old one, something. Well, it's prophesized by a particular cult that the chosen one is going to open the way. Well, once it gets back out that the party opened the way to this cult, they will be the chosen ones, and they would be honored among that organization, whether they want it or not. And there might be specific things in that prophecy stating what you can and cannot do with the chosen ones. So therefore, that would be, like, off the top of my head, that'd be one way for the players to gain renown. with an organization and not even be aware of it.
So another example, could easily be, hey, I'm seriously doubling down on I'm being a good person. So the heroes, they do heroic stuff. They save people's lives. They rescue princesses. They do this stuff that is affecting an area, a region. Well, organizations that happen to be in and of that area are going to eventually hear of that. Now, it's going to overlap, within their terrain. So while they're getting renowned in that area, that organization who, might really care about what they're doing, maybe it's a mercenary company, maybe it's a church, maybe it's an organization that specifically decides, they hunt down dark and evil creatures, whatever have you. These are all things that when they hear of the exploits of your heroes, they're going to be like, I like these guys, and might send letters of recruitment. They might be like, hey, you can join, and we'll automatically, bring you in at, tier 2 instead of tier 3 because, you've already done all of this stuff, and we want you to be representing our organization. So essentially they're trying to capitalize on the renown that they're building, and they want to be like, instead of having it be this name, use our name. Get us bigger, so there's lots of different ways that you could use it in that regards, for a more positive spin as opposed to unleashing elder horrors.
You can do that too, but also like kind of looping off of that, if the players accomplish something that is in line with an organization, and one of the easy ways for that organization to kind of glom onto that achievement, especially if it's one that's important for them, would then to be try to associate themselves with those player characters, with those adventurers who've done the thing that they needed to do. So in that way, they can also gain renown as well. So it can definitely flow in different ways. And also, I guess touching back to can the players, NPCs have players with or NPCs gain renown with players. That is simply always just a choice, like you had stated. So you played a fan game last night as well, correct?
Man, last night's game was awesome.
Your players might be gaining some renown right now as we speak.
Renown, infamy, yeah. So, I had 5 players initially lined up for my game last night, and as I sent out a reminder Thursday, one of them said, I can't make it. And I'm like, all right, well, that's sad. Friday morning, I'm getting ready to prep for the day's events, and inspiration hit me, and I'm like, all right, I want to make a new monster to use tonight. So I stitched together something fun. I decided that I was going to run yet another twist on my Betrayal at House on the Hill game, and when things got rolling, one of the 4 players wound up not being able to make it. So I ran a 3-player game. They only explored, they started in the hallway. They explored 2 rooms, had role playing, a single combat. Game lasted over 2 hours and has wound up becoming like a big, the largest impact on the campaign world from any one shot that I've run in Chimes of Discordia. So
one of your players had a specific request.
So, one of the things that I've tried to do recently is when I'm throwing these games, most of you out there have heard us talk about how very improv DMs we tend to be. So, and we also steal from everywhere or get inspired from everywhere, however you want to look at it. So I'm like, I was asking the players, give me something, what are you looking for? Do you want a political game? Do you want a combat game? Do you want an exploration game? What pillars do you care about? I'm asking these kind of questions, and I wasn't really getting a whole lot of feedback, from the 5 people that were lined up, and that's not a problem. But one of them, contacted me and said, "Hey, I know you said we're level 9, but I've never fought a Rakshasa. Is there any way you can do anything with that?" And I'm like, well, you can't really fight a Rakshasa as a level 9 character. I mean, they're immune to 6-level spells and under. If I don't give you magic weapons, you've got no chance of killing them. And let's face it, you have to go to the hells to kill them permanently. So, as a 9th level character, you ain't surviving that either.
I don't see the problem.
So I'm like, well, I was inspired to run my Betrayer game, but as opposed to like the villain where you have to get to him and fight him, he's just like, you're gonna be hunted around my manor and you just have to find me and I'll let you free. That's it. Nothing hard, nothing harsh. And that's where the game started.
So you ran hide and seek, is that what you're telling me?
Basically. I would not have thought to describe it as such, but yeah, really.
Nice.
So I had my ye old list of Betrayer stuff, and I'm like, all right, well, based on how long the game is going, I'm like, he could be in any number of these rooms. When it got to a convenient stopping point. Well, they explored a kitchen, and I said that there were some strange things cooking. No one wanted to eat the meat that was there, and it smelled different. It was clearly not, beef or pork or chicken.
The other way meat. Elf.
Well, there was some debates as to whether it was elf or human, and
I'm surprised they didn't try and figure out what it was.
So then they went into the next room, and it was the chapel. Because always right off the main hallway is the kitchen and then a chapel. Totally makes sense. But that's the way the
preaching is hungry work, man.
That's the way my Betrayer game's sometimes going. And when they tried to leave the church, the Rakshasa was like, "Hey, you didn't say a prayer at my altar, or at the altar." Well, the Yontai druid warlock in the party, who is a warlock of Mammon, wearing totally Mr. T amounts of gold chains
Nice.
around his neck, throws a gold coin in and offers a prayer. And I'm like, wait a second, Mammon's a devil. I kind of put the Rakshasa, even though they're not technically a devil, they're just a kind of a neutral fiend. I'm like, they're more in line with devils than with demons. So I'm like, he's kind of on the same lines. And so we wound up having a conversation with Mammon, and if the character didn't keep paying into the purple flames, Mammon would stop talking.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. So, like, he would just keep taking the chains off and putting it in.
You did an Archdevil peep show. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
There was no peep. It was just conversation. It was awesome, and the other character in the party was a tiefling who wound up having a bloodline to Levistus, or however it's pronounced. So when they go back to the kitchen, now mind you, in the chapel before this whole scene happened, the monster I created utterly destroyed the druid, the druid warlock, knocked him out before he even had a chance to act. It was pretty bad. So they took a short rest in the kitchen. Well, the Rakshasa has the ability to watch and listen as to all the stuff that's going on. And he was intrigued by the things that were being said, who they were talking to, and the tactics that they were using. So he wound up recruiting the players. Long conversation, lots of talks about contract, and we wound up creating an organization, in the game, that they're going to go back to the Prime, they're going to create these things, and I now have an organization to add to the world based off of what happened in the game last night. So,
question: Does the organization already exist,
No.
or are these guys the founding members of it?
These three characters in the sheet, the two of the three sheets are right there, are the founding members of the Tigress Sanguine Brotherhood.
What is the objective of this brotherhood?
So the outlying, public face is they hunt down
Demon Mortal Outreach.
No, they hunt down and destroy, magical nuisance creatures.
Okay. That's their cover?
That's their cover. So they're a mercenary band. But in actuality, the Rock Sasha, who they only know as Rock, is actually a biomancer, and he experiments on creatures to imbue properties from other creatures and make something interesting, like the Hellcat that they fought last night. And it was a lot of fun. And they're like, all right, so we're gonna get profit. We're gonna, because the Tiefling was lawful evil, the Yontai was lawful evil, and the Halfling, that was a Beastmaster Cavalier, was lawful neutral. So he's like, I'm kind of more into about profit, and as long as I don't have to do anything where I'm killing people, I'm okay with this. Nice. So they basically, capture magical, creatures with magical abilities and bring it back to the Rock Sasha, and he experiments on them.
So you guys spent this second half of your session writing up the charter.
Essentially, I mean, it wasn't the full deal, but we talked about it. We found out that as they explored the mansion, talking to the Rock Sasha, they realized that his servants were were-tigers, and that some of the characters in the party were like, I could become a were-tiger. I'd be okay with that.
I'm down with that.
So so it's going to take some time to get the transformations all under control, but so that's another part of it, of like, okay, well, those in the organization that want to become were-tigers can absolutely do so, and it's a lot easier to hunt through the wilderness when you can just shapeshift into a tiger and go.
True that. So David Phillips, basically the question is, so Renown can easily be substituted for infamy. I would say yes. I mean, it really is, because you'd have if you do evil things and you're an evil person and belong to evil organizations, the Renown system would work exactly the same for them. And yeah, whether you want to call it infamy or Renown,
so
the same thing.
So you could have like your if you wanted to go again, codify it and have a point scale. You're the higher your renown, that is equal to the lower of your infamy, and just as much as a reaction of, hey, you're a really well-known good guy. Yay! Let me give you what you want because you're awesome and I like you. Hey, you're a really well-known bad guy. Let me give you what you want so that you don't just kill me. It's the same level of get. It's just the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, is it out of fear or respect?
To quote the Pirates of the Caribbean, oh, you are the worst pirate I've ever heard of. Yes, but you have heard of me. So that would fall into the infamy. So a lot of fun that you can work with that, and this organization has the ability to build renown under its front, and then individuals have the ability to gain infamy through some of their more devious actions,
nefarious actions.
There you go. But
that's actually a good example, because you do have the outward facing, hey, this is the thing we do. This is basically a public service that is going to be beneficial to everyone. So amongst the general population, you could have a high renown, but at the same time, you're doing these things behind the scenes that are benefiting this evil being and other evil creatures. So you could be gaining renown with them as well, or infamy as the case may be. And if you keep them, and you can kind of keep it secret, so you could have two different scores.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty well put together. When they signed the contract, which they actually had to put a drop of their own blood in the ink, while they're in his domicile, they're unable to take, they're physically unable to take actions against the Rock Sasha. And they can leave the contract at any point in time that they want. But doing so, the contract is not ended until they have surrendered their device that allows them to go back and forth between his mansion and the Prime. And they have left. So they can't get back there to go get them through an easy way.
As it should be.
As it should be. Because you're gonna play a freaking Rock Sasha. You better have your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Nice. So are you gonna be running any more adventures for those folks?
I don't know. They all had a lot of fun with it, and I really want to. I think that like that group, if we could get everybody synced up, I'd love to see. I reached out to them all this morning to be like, hey, let's start building this organization. Give me some NPCs that you've sought to recruit. I think I might give them at some point in time, like again, if I can get them all together, their next mission. What are they going to bring down?
Here's so Roger Babin, best typo. Oh, hey, you're evil. Wait here while I assemble an angry lunch mob.
Wow.
Sometimes the typos are so much better.
We had some interesting typos last night. When I brought up that I was down players, a handful of people reached out to me, and the one player, Jorian, he's recovering from throat surgery, so he couldn't actually talk. So he communicated to us throughout the whole evening just via the Zoom chat. So every once in a while a typo would happen, and he was a awesome enough guy that when we kind of found it amusing, that he didn't take it personally. But we laughed when you make a typo and then you go to fix your typo and you typo again.
Double typo inception. So Bloodless Dread Gaming. In the Dragon Heist module, all the quests that are for the factions don't pay, and if they do, it's not much. My players don't do any side quests because of this. What should I do? So this. All right. So I'm not intimately familiar with Dragon Heist. I haven't read it, but I would say one is you need to incentivize them to do it, and that isn't always by rewarding them. If you can tie any of those side quests to them personally, you're going to have a better chance of getting them to do it. If they're just generic side quests that have no real bearing on the players, other than maybe they want an adventure or not, then yeah, it's probably not going to be very enticing. But if you can take one of those side quests and figure out a way to thread it back to something that involves one or more of the players in your game, you will have a greater chance of getting them to do your side quests.
So you bought the book, you've got it in your hands, and you're going to run it. It does not matter what is written on the pages in this book. Once you are running it for your home table and you're not doing Adventure League or what have you, you want to have some kind of reward. Build in renown options. Add a gold cost or a magic item cost. You want to incentivize them to do it. Put incentives in there, and lo and behold, they might just do it. Sometimes it could be because there's no reason to do it. Perhaps it's let's go rescue the princess from the evil dragon. Well, you know what? I am terrified of dragons, and I really don't think I'm being paid for this. So no, I'm not going to do it. Oh wait, it was my sister, as Dave says. Have it linked to them. Okay, well maybe I will go save my sister. You can find ways to put things in there that are going to convince your players to actually go and do it.
Also, Dragon Heist is all about finding those 500,000 golden dragons. So, they could allude to maybe they know something. Maybe they have a clue for them. Just do this thing for me.
They could be lying.
They could be lying. They could give them misinformation. You're not going to want to do that all the time because...
No. Yeah. If you could give them a hook to go do a side quest, and then it turned out that it was just a waste of time, they're not going to be happy about that. But
maybe that'll lead them to the next side quest. So those are some things to consider. And also, things that they've done throughout the adventure already. Whenever they do something notable, definitely write it down and keep track of it, because maybe that's your next hook for the next, for a side quest later on in the adventure. this is compelling YouTube content here now.
Yes.
as we talk and then look to find out if there were any questions that we missed.
I mean, we like to, respond to what you guys are saying. We can't always, sit there and type the responses while we're doing it. So, that was my game. Last night I talked about the, RPG great game that's coming up. Sadly, the last 2 weeks I haven't played my my game over on Mini Terrain Domain.
You guys should be back this week.
Hopefully, I mean, we should have been back Thursday night, which
Stuff happened.
But we had one person that was sick, and the GM is like, "I'm stuck at work. I don't think I can run tonight." I was sad. It's like I want to play. I miss that character. But as time goes, that campaign will pick back up, and you can see the exploits of the Dawnbringers if you're interested in checking that out.
Yeah, we also didn't play Save or Dice, but we did put up one of our After Dark episodes.
Yeah, the crazily named one.
A little bit. Things get a little wild over there.
But lots of fun happened. The following Saturday is going to be session 1 of my new game, which sadly for you out there, you'll have to, miss out because we're actually not going to be recording this one.
Yeah, we might get do some recaps on the website, or maybe that we'll talk about them during when we do these videos.
But I mean, we got a very full table. We got seven players in that game, and it does take up the entire table here.
A little bit of a teaser. We did shoot a video today that might be near and dear to some of our older gamers. It may or may not involve the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, so you can look for that in the near future.
It may or may not.
So after we get done over here, we're going to be doing the Nerdarchy patron after show. We already got some questions that have come in over there. So some of the things that we're going to be covering. If you're a patron, all you have to do is when you're done here, go log in to Patreon, and you'll be able to see the post. If you're not a patron, you can always join at any level and do the same. So, Fragginator asks the question. I'd like to run like a rundown of how Ted uses the Betrayal game in D&D. He talked a little bit of that, and from his session, that's what he was using, and that's why he got the weird chapel by the kitchen. But we're going to go into more depth into that during that live chat.
Absolutely.
There's a question about, in the past, the Nerdarchy team has been larger. What happened? We'll talk about that a little bit.
Oh man, we're gonna get into that. Wow.
We're gonna get into that. Mud will be slung. No mud will be slung. Someone wants to know what was your first character each you guys played in D&D, including names if you can remember them. So there's some of the topics that we're going to be covering over there in the next 30 minutes or so, I would say. We usually have it slated for 3:30, but we start earlier because I cannot schedule on the 15-minute mark.
Right. So, Undefined Studios wants to know best gaming table recommendations.
Best gaming table recommendations, like actual table.
So I'm looking at the question, and to me, I think he wants to know about the table itself, not necessarily putting together the players. But I mean, I've seen the ones where they actually inlay the monitor on there so that you can put in your battle maps and you put your minis and your stuff, right there on top of it. I've seen the ones that have the inserts for each player's personal dice rolling tray and drink stand. I'm drawing a blank, but they're at the conventions that we've been to. You pay out the ears for it, but if you can afford it, they're absolutely 100% worth it.
Yeah, there's Carolina game tables. There's quite a few companies that have them. Some of them have them where it's like it's literally like set up to be a dining room table. Mm-hmm. Then the top comes off for it to be a gaming table.
But I mean, if I could get one of those things, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I mean, love battle maps. I've been using them for years. But I mean, if I could have the thing where I just USB my map in and it comes up on a screen.
Yeah, it's actually a way cheaper. You can build them fairly cheap. It depends on how handy you are. Cody from Taken 20 did a video on the table that he built that's kind of like a portable one. Not a portable one, but it comes apart.
Okay.
And that was like a big thing. Like he wanted something that he could put together for game night and then take down when it was time, and it, including having a TV. Having the TV screen right in there. So that's definitely a thing you can check out on his channel. It's not really, I wouldn't call it a how-to video, but you could definitely get some ideas from that. I bet you can download plenty of ideas on the interwebs.
So Undefined Studios came on and says that the table he's got is just too small. So I mean, the table that you've seen us playing at for years, that is what the computer and the camera's sitting on right there. I have a bar pool table that came with the house, and we took a basic sheet of plywood, 4 foot by 8 foot. We cut the thing in half. We put in, like a 1x1 or a 2x2, bracket attached to it. We felt cover the whole thing, and we slide them on top. And then I have just a, sheet of fabric that I lay down over top of it. And for the most part, it has just become a 4 foot by 8 foot table that I can game on. I've fit 9 players around the table before, so there's plenty of space if you're willing to go with something like that. But I mean, your average dining room table that has the the pull out that you can put leaves in, those make great gaming spaces. I know there's plenty of like the fold collapsible tables that I've seen people game at.
The first table that we used to play with at my place back when I used to live around the corner from where Ted lives now was literally, your grandfather had made it for me, and it was a sheet of plywood cut in half with hinges on the bottom and fold out legs, and then it also had some 2x4 on the inside as a backer, and we would fold up and put it aside. And because it was it's not as fancy as your felt covered pool table, everyone would draw on the table.
I mean, I still wish we had that thing, because I mean, it had so much awesome memory of people.
Pizza stains, spills, writing,
I mean,
drawings, poems.
It was more the drawings
haikus.
And the poems, that were put on, that were the memories. But I mean, just there wasn't a space for it, I think, when you moved out, and it was just like, all right, it's gone.
Roger Babin, get pool table, cover the table, cover the holes, ta-da, gaming table. It says Tara, but I think he meant ta-da.
So there was a question in here about tracking Renown. As we said early on, we've never used the defined system, but I mean, I would look in the DMG and Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica.
And they do have basically systems.
Yeah, so there's tools there that you can work with if you want to follow those guidelines. That's as good a system to work with as any, and you've always got it's your table. Make the modifications to make it your own is what I would do.
Although so Undefined Studios 4 foot by 8 foot. Thank you. I will say though, like for filming games, not a great table. It's too wide.
No, yeah. I mean, it's big, but I mean, for the stuff that I've done and dealt with, I mean, it's been a great table here. But we have covered the whole thing in Hero Escape tiles before.
That is true as well. That was also a bad move too, because what happens is it's too narrow, and like you would end up the way the combats would unfold because of that. If you had a lot of players, you'd have 2 on either end, and they actually had the advantageous position because they were the furthest away from everything else. And then you'd end up with 2 players that were basically right across from each other. Or you ended up with 2 players at one side, 2 players at the other side. So it was like these 2 people fight, and then whoever wins that will meet in the middle.
I think it was more of an issue, the fact that it took us 8 hours to build the map.
To build it, yeah.
It took us 3 hours to clean up.
The good old days.
The problem is when Ted gets into something.
Well, you also
I'm
used
all
to.
in.
Anthony, we were talking about Hero Escape when we went over, or when I went over Anthony and Nicole's from Cardboard Fortress, and he's like, "There's Hero Escape. The Hero Escape tiles are worth money now." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you could definitely get at least what you paid for them, or more."
Well,
I'm like, I don't know. I got a lot of Hero Escape stuff.
I happen to be looking around I don't know, it was Miniature Market or something, but like one of like the base sets, like I don't know whether it was the castle or like just the base game, was like listed at $150, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, we probably both of us, we've got hundreds, if not more, dollars worth of Heroescape stuff.
I know through all the different things and wheeling and dealing that I had done, I wound up with 8 master sets at a minimum.
I don't know how much. Like, I don't know what the breakdown is. I just ended up with so much of it.
I wound up with at least 5 castle sets, at least 3 or 4 of the lavas. Every expansion that had figures, I bought 2 or 3 of. And sadly, there are pictures out there of unreleased, Heroescape minis, and I'm like, but I wanted that guy.
I wanted that guy. Yeah, it was a ton. It was a ton of fun. If I get a dedicated gaming space, I will definitely be setting up some Heroescape for sure. I've got like a wall lined with like they're not totes. They're like what do you call them? They're like
The plastic store.
Plastic storage containers, but they're on wheels and they have drawers.
Oh wow! Oh, so like similar to what I have, just
yeah,
wheels.
but they're a little bit smaller. But I have like 6 of them, full of stuff. And then in addition to that, I also have like some boxes of all the tiles and stuff and the castle pieces. And
I have like 4 45-gallon totes, and then boxes of all Heroescape stuff.
Yeah, I miss playing Heroescape. Taurus, can your player avoid renown as he's being hunted? Yes, it's called a disguise. Basically, you would be going incognito. But we've got a little bit sidetracked on our reminiscing over Heroescape. I was going in a totally different direction with that story, and it got sidetracked. But with that, we get ready for the next live chat we're doing for the patrons. If you're not a patron, just head over there and you can click the button for $1 or more. You can get it on the next one. So until next time,
Stay nerdy. Have fun. Hope to see you on the other video.